Hello and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. Booster jabs for the over 50s and a push on flu prevention. But vaccine passports for large events are scrapped. So will the Prime Minister's winter plan be enough to prevent another full lockdown?
A bumpy ride ahead, more bike lanes ripped up after locals say we don't want them. Cyclists warn that councils will pay the price.
Also this Tuesday evening, celebrating cinema in the southeast. A look back over a century of movies and some images with tales to tell.
And Britain's rarest wild mammal, an animal charity in Kent gets ready to give a new future to the wildcat. Good evening. COVID-19 booster jabs for the over 50s were announced today as the central plank of the government's winter plan for fighting the pandemic.
The rollout for 30 million people starts next week. But if it fails to control the spread of COVID and hospitals come under serious pressure again, the government warns of potential Plan B measures.
And these include compulsory mask wearing and working from home. And lockdowns are not being ruled out. John Ryle has been getting reaction here in the southeast.
An exercise class for the over 50s today at Mapfield in Kent. All qualify for the COVID booster programme announced today and all agree it's the right move.
I'm very for it actually, and I'd certainly have it myself. I think it's a great thing. We've missed so much of life this last 2 years, all the over 65s. We're never going to get those years back. So let's waste no more years. Let's have the jab and be safe.
We should all have a booster and get on with life.
The government's hope is that booster jabs for the over 50s will hold down COVID-related hospital admissions through the winter. Its fear is that if the statistics go the wrong way, that would lead to thousands of people who've already had hospital treatments delayed because of the pandemic, having them delayed even further. And if that happens, if hospitals come under serious pressure again, we could see the return of compulsory masks and millions working from home again, the government said today, with lockdowns not ruled out. The government hopes that offering COVID jabs to 12 to 15-year-olds will hold down infection rates at secondary schools. A move welcomed 2 weeks into the new term at the Skinner School in Tunbridge Wells.
It's clear that there's a debate about whether the risks are outweighed by the benefits, but I would say we are happy to endorse vaccinations if parents endorse it as well.
No such protection, though, at primary schools. Many, like this one at Lamberhurst, are seeing a sharp rise in COVID cases now. Here, the head is determined to keep things as normal as possible for the pupils, but segregation among classes and year groups is back.
On Sunday night, it wasn't my best Sunday, I have to tell you. We suddenly had this escalation of symptoms, positive lateral flows and some positive PCRs, and I have to say a huge thank you to our parents and our school community for their vigilance, because they communicated through their class messaging service, and it shows the effectiveness of schools' messaging services.
30 million people qualify for the COVID booster programme starting next week. Many will receive their flu jab at the same appointment. The rollout is the central measure of the COVID winter programme announced today. But it will not be enough, the most senior health officials are warning, to prevent this winter being a bumpy ride. John Ryle, ITV News.
So what's the detail of the new rules? Here's Catherine Walker.
The new winter toolbox of COVID-19 measures includes a new vaccination programme. Booster coronavirus jabs will now be offered to everyone over 50 in the same order of priority as the first vaccine rollout. Children aged 12 to 15 will also be offered their first dose of the vaccine starting from next week. The government is also encouraging people to get their flu jab, especially those with long-term health conditions, pregnant women and frontline workers. As things stand, plans to introduce vaccine passports for large venues like nightclubs have been shelved. But that could still form part of a package of measures if cases do start to rise and put the NHS under increasing pressure. Other Plan B guidance could include the return of face masks and advice to work from home. A full winter lockdown hasn't been ruled out, and Downing Street say it will be a last resort.
Lots of reaction at Parliament to today's announcement. Some supportive, some not. Phil Hornby's been listening to the South East MPs. What have you been hearing, Phil?
Well, Andrew, we've heard a lot on this programme, haven't we, about Plan B, and a lot of MPs are concerned about that, about the return of mask wearing and working from home and so on. Indeed, just the use of the word mask led to the Health Secretary getting heckled by MPs from his own side today.
Wearing a face mask in crowded and enclosed spaces, where you can come into contact with people that you don't normally meet.
The big question is what would trigger Plan B, and the MP from Tunbridge Wells made it clear today that it must only be a big rise in hospitalisations and deaths, not just a big rise in case numbers, and that's because of vaccination.
Will he say something about the triggers for any future lockdown or other restrictions, and confirm that the expected increase in the transmission of COVID will not be among them?
We'll hear soon about new rules for foreign travel, and the MP for Bexhill and Battle, who's the chair of the Transport Committee in the House of Commons today, wants the government to get rid of those expensive PCR tests for travellers.
Will he entertain the idea of moving to lateral flow tests, which are cheaper, and then only the small proportion of positive cases would then need to take up a PCR test?
We'll hear more about foreign travel in a few weeks' time. A bit late for many people for their summer holidays, but vital, of course, for many jobs in our region. And the booster jab campaign should start next week, as we've heard, following the same pattern as the first vaccine rollout. In other words, starting with healthcare workers, social care workers, and the very elderly. They'll be first to get it. People like me, well, I might get a jab for Christmas if I'm lucky.
Phil, thank you very much indeed. And you can find more on today's top stories in the region throughout the day on our website. Go to itv.com/Meridian.
The number of migrants who made the journey to the south coast last week reached nearly 2,000, a new record for the year so far. And since January, 14,000 people crossed the Channel from France. The government's repeated its message that it will turn back migrant boats at sea if necessary.
A man from Canterbury has been jailed for seriously assaulting a woman after a court order barred him from contacting her. Aidan Hubbard-Stewart attacked his victim twice, causing serious injuries the second time after punching her to the ground. The 21-year-old was jailed for 4 years and given an indefinite restraining order to protect the victim and her family.
Additional support is being offered to more than 1,000 under-25s claiming benefits in part of Sussex. The One Stop Youth Employment Hub in Worthing will offer help with training, apprenticeships and employment.
A museum in Canterbury is appealing for any unwanted Lego for a special Christmas project. The Beanie's Bricksmas exhibition will feature a life-size Lego Santa in his workshop, complete with reindeer and elves. School children will help build the festive scene using the donated bricks.
They popped up in the pandemic as a means of getting around when COVID made car sharing difficult. Active travel schemes included cycle lanes with safety measures to encourage all of us to get on our bikes, but some were swiftly removed in the face of local protests.
Now the government has warned councils schemes that were scrapped too soon will affect future funding. Tony Green has more, a warning his report does contain some flashing images.
For this cycle lane, it's the end of the road. Work has begun this week to remove measures designed to make cyclists feel safe. It's the latest active travel scheme to be ripped out. Dozens of projects were put in during lockdown, but not everyone liked them. Councils have now been told that removing bike lanes too quickly could affect their future funding. That didn't stop opposition councillors here in Hove.
When the council first bid for the Active Travel Fund money, which paid for this cycle scheme, the Department for Transport gave Brighton and Hove more money per capita than anywhere outside London. They liked it so much. This was really ticking all their boxes on a main road. It's very direct, it's linking people and places. And because Brighton and Hove are taking out what the Department for Transport says is a really good scheme, when the Department for Transport was sort of looking at why they were taking it out, they've been very strict and said, we need evidence of failure. And there is no evidence of failure. It's worked.
Labour councillors voted to scrap the lane shortly after declaring a climate emergency, but they insist it created more problems than it solved.
It was really important to consult with the local community, and therefore what we've done is listened to them and decided to remove this road. In terms of the funding, that was government money that was promised to roll out these active travel measures, but we were initially reassured by officers that money could be relocated to other schemes. However, since then, central government has intervened and again asked another requirements of local councils, which has put that funding possibly at risk.
That warning came in a letter from Cycling Minister Chris Heaton-Harris, warning council leaders that authorities which have prematurely removed or weakened such schemes should expect to receive a reduced level of funding. Around the region, schemes have been quietly removed. In Kent, the council is preparing a new consultation on active travel schemes, like the one that was here, to segregate cyclists from other traffic.
What do you think local authorities should be doing that they're not doing?
Well, they are under an obligation to reallocate road space. It's not a campaign ask, this is government policy. You know, this is in gear change, what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that actually, to be fair to Kent, they are trying to do this. They are trying to reallocate road space. And they're putting schemes in which sometimes work, sometimes don't work. And they're trying their best to see what works.
The Department of Transport has made it very clear to local authorities, if you don't give these schemes a chance to bed in and properly evaluate them, we'll not give you money for further transport schemes. And that will be disastrous for every local authority that finds themselves in that situation, because this is government policy to try and make better provision for walking, cycling, for active travel.
The empty streets of lockdown are long gone. And instead of making councils greener, its legacy could see them heading into the red. Tony Green, ITV News.
The activist group who brought the M25 to a standstill in Kent yesterday say hundreds of billions of investment is required to insulate homes in the UK. Major disruption was caused at Junction 3, the M20 Swanley interchange. It was one of several demonstrations on and around the M25 by the group Insulate Britain. They want the government to insulate homes to reduce emissions.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of proper jobs, meaningful jobs, and we're talking about stopping the deaths of thousands of our old people, which is what happens because old age pensioners have to choose between food or heat. What we're asking for is a meaningful statement from the government that they're going to act on insulating Britain, and we'll get off the roads immediately.
In a statement, the government said people's day-to-day lives should not be disrupted, especially on busy motorways where lives are put at risk, and resulting in traffic delays that will only add to vehicle emissions. They say they're investing £1.3 billion this year alone to support people to install energy-efficient measures.
Dozens of historic buildings across our region are holding special events this week as part of the annual Heritage Open Days. The theme is Edible England, so Ramsgate Tunnels will be holding wartime cookery demonstrations. Many of the locations are not usually open to the public.
Now, only 6% of the most powerful jobs in the UK are held by people from an ethnic minority background, with some sectors, such as the police, revealing a complete absence of BAME individuals in the top positions.
However, the figure is a significant improvement from 2017, when it stood at just 3%. Campaigners say there is still lots of work to be done to make sure progress continues and there's enough diversity at the top. Amrit Birdie reports.
From the front benches to leaders in health and education, the number of ethnic minority people in prominent public positions in the UK has doubled in the past few years. Kent business owner Antonia Algonsola celebrates this progress, but says there is still a long way to go.
A lot of change is driven from the top at the end of the day, and that takes time. And, although we're seeing things like 1,000 Black interns, we're seeing people more focused on diversity, I don't expect any real change to happen overnight. It takes years, if not generations, for them to actually kind of come to fruition.
Research shows that in 2017 there was a mere 36 Black, Asian and minority ethnic people out of the 101,000 top political, public, cultural and media jobs in the UK. By July 2021, this number had doubled to 73. But the research also showed the police, the Supreme Court and the security services still have a complete absence of BAME faces at the top. Oxfam GB Chief Executive Danny Sriskandarajah has held several important leadership positions in his career. Born in Sri Lanka, he says some attitudes within minority communities also need to change so more people can climb the ladder.
A lot of my family didn't want me to go into public leadership. They said, the best thing for someone of a minority background to do was just keep your head down and, be the best doctor or lawyer or whatever it is that you want to be. And I hope that minority communities up and down the country are encouraging their younger members to take on public leadership, because we do need to make sure that pipeline of talent is strong.
The BYP network helps connect Black professionals from all over the world. Its founder, Kike Onowende, says by not diversifying their teams, companies are missing out.
The data says it all the time that, diverse teams are more high performing. And at the end of the day, we're becoming more and more of a diverse nation, and the world is becoming more and more diverse, more integration. And it's just one of those things where if you're servicing stakeholders, they want to see diversity and representation.
The number of leaders from an ethnic minority background in the UK is growing, but campaigners say there is still serious work to be done in many important industries to address the imbalance. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
And joining us is Lord Simon Woolley, founder and director of Operation Black Vote. He was also chair of the government's Race Disparity Unit until July last year. Lord Woolley, thank you for talking to us. Now, Operation Black Vote carried out the research that we've just been hearing about. It revealed the number of ethnic minority people in prominent public positions has more than doubled in the last 4 years. So that's progress. So why is there still a call for more diversity at the top?
Well, I guess when we started this initially in 2017, we started from a very, very low base, about 2%. And so, it's increased. And actually, it increased significantly in the last 18 months. And I would argue because of the Black Lives Matter protest and the reflection that many people were having in big business and in government, we're seeing this change. And this is a welcome change, because when we can see a pathway from zero to high office, that people feel more confident in the politics, more confident in the business, and feel that they want to be part of it, they want to belong. So it's a win-win when you have these pathways, if you like, for people to access. But, in some areas, it's still slow in the police, senior police officers, and that we have now a few police commissioners from Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities, but permanent secretaries still very low. So progress is being made, but we need to see more. And actually, not just in race equality, but also gender, it's still lagging behind. When you look at this fantastic piece of work that we've done, thecolorofpower.com, you can look at class, you can look at race, you can look at gender, bring it all together, see where it is, see where it needs to go.
Now, about 14% of the UK's population is Black or Asian. Do you think we'll ever see that number reflected in prominent positions?
Well, if we want it to happen, it can happen. But you've got to start from the zero. You've got to start from the schools, the colleges, the universities, and then have a cultural switch, if you like, where you're nurturing talent. I mean, we all watched the great tennis sensation, Emma Raducanu, win in the USA at the weekend. Her mother's of Chinese heritage, her father Romanian. In the UK, we have teaming diversity. We should celebrate it. We should nurture it. I want it to be successful, not just in sport, but in politics, in business, in education, right across the piece. And not just for Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities, but also white working class too. When we have a teaming diversity that can flourish and be successful at the very top, everybody benefits.
Lord Simon Woolley, thank you so much for your time today. Pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you very much.
Now, rare footage from the early 1900s has been released to showcase the history of cinema in the South East. A number of events have been taking place as part of West Sussex Unwrapped, which celebrates life in the county through film and pictures.
One film shows troops arriving in East Grinstead in 1914 for training in World War I. Tom Savides takes up the story.
These soldiers are about to head out to war. Marching through East Grinstead in 1914. They would train in Sussex before arriving on the battlefields of continental Europe.
There would have been a training camp set up at Forest Row, and the films depict the North Somerset Yeomanry and their horses and carts marching through the town on the way to this training camp. Local newspapers mark their arrival and, of course, their departure for France about 2 months later.
Today, this is a silent movie, but at the time, the manager of the Whitehall Cinema in East Grinstead would record events and then narrate his films live as the images were shown in the auditorium. The cinema no longer exists. It was destroyed by German bombs in 1943. Historian Frank Gray is behind the West Sussex Unwrapped project in collaboration with Screen Archive South East and West Sussex Record Office. Old films like this one, showing children leaving the Heath Theatre in Haywards Heath in 1930, are just some of the items that have come to light after organisers delved into the archives.
As an historian, I'm fascinated by how we can bring together a photograph, a print, a map and a film. Because it's that combination which gives us a real sense of the texture of the past. So to me, it's that integration of all of that very, very rich documentation, which helps us get a sense of what the past was like.
And Frank Gray believes that despite huge advancements in technology, there's still nothing like going to the cinema.
Despite the demolitions, despite all the changes, there's still a verve, there's still excitement about the medium and what it means to audiences, not watching streaming versions of films, but actually going to the cinema and seeing the real thing.
The spotlight has been shining on a number of events as part of West Sussex Unwrapped, as cinema celebrates its 125th anniversary. Tom Savides, ITV News, Lewis.
Always good pictures. Now, it's thought to be Britain's rarest mammal, the wildcat, with fewer than 400 of them left outside captivity. So an animal park in Kent is taking part in a nationwide push to save the wildcat from extinction.
With a breeding programme, the Wildwood Trust at Herne, near Canterbury, hopes it will be able to release kittens into the wild. Abigail Bracken has more.
The wildcat is the only native cat species surviving in Britain, looking similar at first glance to a domestic tabby, but they're larger and more fierce. Only a few survive in the wild, which is why a Kent Animal Park is taking part in a nationwide breeding programme.
Due to changes in land use, habitat change, and direct persecution, it's now pretty much extinct in all areas, but remaining in a few numbers in isolated areas in Scotland, but is so depleted it is functionally extinct in the wild. They are our last remaining native cat species in Britain, and they should be here.
So they've just started building 8 new breeding enclosures at the Wildwood Trust in Herne and are fundraising for more. Wildcats are a secretive species and like it to be quiet, which is why they've decided to build their breeding enclosures here, away from the rest of the park and from visitors. The kittens born here will become part of the first wildcat population outside of Scotland in over 200 years, when they find the right place with public support.
the amount of food that these animals eat, again, is fairly minimal. In fact, they are the farmer's friend in some respects, because they're eating species that might otherwise be known as pests, rodents, rabbits, because they'll take birds as well, ground nesting birds. So there are some impacts to having a wildcat here, but the benefits outweigh the costs, we believe.
So they hope there will be cats like these born in Kent in the wild again within the next 5 years. Abigail Bracken, ITV News, Herne.
Beautiful creatures. Now, the children's author Jacqueline Wilson has been in Sussex today. She was at Sheffield Park Station reading to local school children, and she told us why she loved old steam railways so much and how she was hoping to update the Edwardian novel The Railway Children for a new generation.
I loved Edith Nesbit's The Railway Children when I was a little girl, and I knew Edith Nesbit sometimes borrowed ideas from other authors, and so I thought the shade of E. Nesbit would not mind in the slightest if I borrowed her basic idea.
She's brilliant, isn't she? Let's go across to meet Holly now. Holly, this time last week you were enjoying the sunshine in the South Downs. What's gone wrong today?
Oh, I know. It's a bit of a disappointment, isn't it? Shall we remind ourselves what last week looked like? Because it really was a scorcher, if you like the hot weather, of course. You couldn't have asked for more. This was Rye Harbour Nature Reserve. Sue Reed was there enjoying those blue skies. This was, I believe, a sunset. You can correct me if I'm wrong, though. Adam Bellis was here in Worthing. And again, apart from that little cloud you can just see behind my head, basically not a cloud in the sky and just glorious. And finally, look at this. This was Hastings. Chris Jennings took this. I mean, my goodness, it doesn't look like September at all. Perhaps this does look a bit more like September. This was Hastings today, captured by Peter Norman. Thank goodness he had his bright umbrella, because there wasn't much else bright to be spotted. Now, I know all that sounds doom and gloom. Actually, some of us have had a bit of brightness today. That's the way some of us have ended things. But just for comparison, look at the temperatures. So Hurst-Monceau was top of the shop last week, 29.2 degrees. Today, around 10 degrees lower.
So, Holly, is that the end of all the nice weather? Any chance of an Indian summer?
Well, do you know, to be technical about it, an Indian summer has to occur in October or November, so definitely still time for that. In the short term, though, hopefully not looking too bad. Let's take a look. Here we go.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
Some lively old rain around at times for today. A nice start this morning, but of course, as shepherds would tell you, that can mean a bit of a grotty day. But any thundery showers are easing this evening, though we have still got a Met Office rain warning in force until 9 o'clock. Turning murky into tonight, low cloud, hill fog, but brightening into tomorrow. And that's because we've got this lump in the isobars, if you can see it there. This is what we call a ridge. It's sort of a finger of high pressure. It settles things down. It should give us a decent couple of days. However, you can also see weather fronts in the west. They will head our way. Some uncertainty about exactly when we'll start to see the next batch of rain. Perhaps later on Friday, though, looks most likely. Still this chance then of some thundery showers out there this evening, but yes, they are tending to ease off the most. Into tonight, the air is quite moist, it's quite humid, and it's leading to a lot of low cloud and some hill fog. 15 or 16 your low, so it is a mild and a close feeling night. It may well be murky then to start tomorrow morning, pretty grey, but actually it brightens rather nicely, so hopefully some good spells of sunshine there breaking out. You can see an odd shower or two. We might see a few of those feeding down from East Anglia, but on balance, I think a largely dry day. Temperatures getting that bit higher than today and hopefully feeling quite pleasant. Our times of high water, we've got Shiness at 7:21 and again at 8 p.m. as we head into the evening. And finally, the outlook. Well, I think a decent couple of days in store, although there may well be mist and fog at first, but as that clears, we should see some sunshine, perhaps later on Friday, some rain arriving with a showery look, perhaps some more rain as we head into the weekend.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
In just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Romley Weeks, while Sangeeta has our late news.
While Andrew goes and enjoys his dinner. For now, though, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.